Let's talk about the pros and cons of living in Powder Springs, Georgia. The first pro of living in this city is its affordability. This is absolutely one of the biggest ones when it comes to Powder Springs, especially in a housing market where home prices just increase every year and rent prices increase every year. It's like affordability is really something that many people are looking for, rightfully so, and Powder Springs is one of the best Atlanta suburbs for finding that. Powder Springs is just west of Marietta, and while homes in Marietta are getting very expensive, average home prices in Marietta are increasing every year. Powder Springs is a little less than Marietta, and so very often people who are looking for those Marietta amenities or Marietta things choose Powder Springs because it's right next to each other, but you're paying a lot less than Marietta. When it comes to rents in Powder Springs, you're looking at about $1,500 to $2,000 per month for like a 3-bed, 2-bath home, and then for buying a home in Powder Springs, usually around mid 300s, maybe high 300s for a 3-bed, 2-bath home. But again, one of the biggest things that's going on here is that we're in a buyer's market, and so these home prices are kind of slowly coming down, especially during these winter months. And as we get closer to the spring, it's like buyers have a lot more advantage and you don't have to pay the list price of the home, or you get your closing costs paid for. And this is especially true in Powder Springs. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Atlanta Suburban Living. We put out videos every week about what it's like to live in Atlanta and the suburbs of Atlanta. Another big pro of living in Powder Springs is the school system here. The public schools in Powder Springs are excellent. Most of Powder Springs is in Cobb County, and so also in Cobb County are cities like Marietta, Ackworth, Kennesaw, and in general, Cobb County is known for having some of the best public schools in all of Georgia. And so for the people who are looking for these excellent public schools for their kids and they don't want to be in an area where the schools are kind of spotty, no worries in Cobb County, no worries in Powder Springs. Again, these are some of the best public schools, and so this is a big draw for many people who choose this city. Another pro of living in Powder Springs is how close it is to work. People who live in Powder Springs don't necessarily need to drive super far or be in a lot of traffic, and so this is a big part of living in Powder Springs. If you plan on moving to Powder Springs, or you just have any questions about what it's like to live here, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out. I'm always happy to help. I'm a local realtor here in the area, and I'd be happy to help even if you just have a question about what it's like to live here. But the proximity to work for many people who live in Powder Springs tends to be much lower than if you live in a farther out suburb, especially because you can very often work in much closer cities like Marietta. For example, if you lived in Powder Springs and worked in Marietta, you would have a commute of like 20 to 30 minutes. This is obviously way better than if you lived in a farther out suburb and you were commuting all the way to Midtown Atlanta for work and your commute was an hour and a half. And this is a common reality that we have here in Metro Atlanta. You really need to be in an area where you're not fighting that traffic every day to get to work. And so because Marietta is a very big city with lots of economy, lots of industry, lots of employers, this is one reason that makes Powder Springs a great area to live in. Not only could you work in Marietta if you lived in Powder Springs, but also nearby Powder Springs would be areas like the Cumberland area, or Alpharetta also has a lot of tech industry, tech economy, and so all of these nearby suburbs are much closer to Powder Springs than driving all the way to Atlanta. Now, this next pro is, in my opinion, could very well make Powder Springs literally the best suburb in all of Metro Atlanta. I know that's a big statement. There are about 100 suburbs around Atlanta, and so it's hard to pick like the one that is absolutely the best. Of course, that really depends on like what you're looking for, what you're needing, you know, for you and your family. And so there are a lot of factors there when it comes to picking the best suburb, but I think it is arguably the best suburb. If I had to pick one, I would pick Powder Springs. And the pro here that I'm referring to is that very often, rightfully so, people are looking for an area of Metro Atlanta that has affordable homes, good schools, safe area, family friendly, and is close to work. And when you combine all of these things, you typically don't get one. Like if you have excellent public schools and close proximity to work, then usually the home prices are really high, i.e. Alpharetta. Or if you have very affordable homes and super close to work, then the schools tend to be not so good in those areas. For example, the areas that are close to 285, like Sandy Springs, where the public schools are almost non-existent, or Dunwoody, or, those areas that have close proximity and are a bit more affordable, the schools there are terrible. And so it's hard to find the combination of all of those things. And this is really what everybody is looking for. They want the area that has the good schools, the close to work, the family friendly, and the affordable homes. And typically you don't find all of this except for Powder Springs. If I had to pick one suburb that had the best combination of all of those things, it would be Powder Springs. Powder Springs has the excellent schools, has the family friendly environment, the close proximity to work, and you don't have to break the bank to buy a home here. And so this, in my opinion, is one of the biggest benefits of living in Powder Springs. Now, of course, there are some downsides to living in Powder Springs. Every city is going to have some downside. I mean, there's no city that is perfect. And so we really want to make sure you have the whole picture when it comes to any area that you plan on moving to. So let's talk about some of the downsides of living in Powder Springs. One of those things is not only that it is far from Atlanta. So if your employer is in Atlanta and you are living in Powder Springs, that's going to be a long commute. But not only that, you're also far from an interstate. And so very often people who work in the city of Atlanta but live in one of the outer suburbs, they often take the interstates to get to Atlanta, 75 or I-85 or Highway 400, which is practically an interstate. And so these roads are the main ones that have the rush hour traffic in the mornings and in the evenings. It's because the people from the suburbs are driving to Atlanta during rush hour traffic. However, Powder Springs does not have easy access to one of these interstates that I named. The closest one would be I-75, but even to get from Powder Springs to I-75 may take alone 20 minutes-ish to get to the interstate. And so if you're working in Atlanta and you're living in Powder Springs, not only do you have that long-ass commute to get to Atlanta, but you can add 20 minutes just to get to the interstate. And so this is obviously a downside for many people. Another one here is that there are some older homes in Powder Springs. They have some new construction as well. The new construction doesn't go for mid 300s though. Those new construction homes probably go for closer to about 400,000 to 500,000. And so if you're looking for one of those homes in the mid 300s, you're looking at a home from like the 90s. And so definitely an issue there is some of the age of the homes in Powder Springs. Another downside of Powder Springs is kind of that it's a little bit rural. I mean, I'm trying to find some downsides here. It's not super rural. It's not super country out in Powder Springs. I live about 15 minutes from Powder Springs. It's really not that bad, but it's not as modern. It's not as like a whole bunch of things going on and city life. It's not as modern as like Marietta downtown or Alpharetta. It's certainly not that vibe. It's more like a quiet suburban area where you have more space between your neighbors and you're not walking to the grocery store, you're driving 10 to 15 minutes maybe to the grocery store. And so it's a little quieter than some of the other suburbs of Metro Atlanta. And then another downside of living here is certainly that it's not a super diverse area. There's a little bit of diversity in Powder Springs, but not a whole lot of diversity. In fact, if you plan on moving to Powder Springs, there's really quite a few things here that we really need to get into, especially when it comes to diversity. So I've made an entire video about the 7 things you need to know before you move to Powder Springs. You really should check this one out. It's right here. I'll see you in the next one.